Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Open Equine Market Commentary for the week of August 20th. My name is Toby Gennaro from Trade with Precision, and just coming to you here with our outlook for the week on the U.S. indices, commodities, and foreign currencies. And here we are looking at the ES futures, the S&P 500 index, and as you can see, we have again, a series of three bullish candles most recently. So we've got a nice bull trend, an upward trend working for the last 3 months, and then that high right in at about that 1420 level. We can see that a little bit better here on the weekly chart. So we're almost right up into that 1420 level. Had a little bit of a pullback, but it looks like we're really grinding higher. You can see we had a number of those rejection candles back on the weekly chart several weeks ago, and continuing to push higher, broke some of those levels. As we move down to the daily chart, we can see the most recent pullback here at that 1355 level, and then we just took off. We were off to the races for the last 2 weeks. So a series of small bullish candles here, just continuing to grind higher, shallow pullbacks into the 10-period moving average on the daily chart. So what I've been doing is just really watching some of the intermediate time frames like the 480, the 240, and the 120, just looking for some of these pullbacks in the buy zone with those setup candles is where I've been getting most of my setups. So one level in here that we might want to keep an eye out for is that 1403 level, in case we get a pullback there on the 480 chart, and then that 1386 level if we end up getting a deeper pullback on the daily chart. But you're going to get a lot of setups there on the 240 and the 120 and the 60-minute charts. So stay in touch with those and look for those trend flow setups, and then keep an eye out for some of the divergence that's showing up on some of the 60 and the 120-minute charts. That'll give you an idea of when to start taking some profit, and then looking for a potential pullback into the moving averages and look for that setup again to get long this market. So very bullish on the ES futures and the overall stock market in general. And then looking at the small caps on the Russell 2000 here again with the monthly chart. Getting a little different look here. Last month, as we talked about last week, got a very indecisive candle right there on the monthly chart, but overall establishing some new highs here. And then as we look at the weekly chart, actually got a couple of nice weeks, a couple of good rejection candles right there, and really broke the highs of those and really taking off into that 820 level, which is where we're at right now. So still really looking to get back to this 857 level from the point that we're at right here on the Russell 2000. Really nothing stopping the market from moving into that level. So don't know when that's going to happen, but we just know to look for the pullbacks on this existing trend and then trade it up into that level. So as we move down to the daily chart, we can see had a really nice setup right there several days ago, last week, right in the buy zone, and we just pushed higher and broke that flat level of 805. So nice support level there at 805. If we get a pullback back into that level, put us right back in the buy zone on the 480 chart, and start to look for those trend flow setup candles getting long the Russell 2000. So keep an eye out for some of the same things as you start to see some divergence on some of the lower time frames like the 60 or the 120. That'll give you some idea of when to start taking some profit, and then potentially looking for the next pullback on that trend flow setup. But overall, again, very bullish here on the Russell 2000, and really looking for the markets here to move up into that, back up into that 855 level. And taking a look at crude oil here, we've been looking at this one in previous weeks. Just looking at the monthly chart, really in pretty much a range here, right at the top of that range, right around 112, and then the bottom of that range has been right around that 77 level. So we're just coming off of that, getting right back into the moving averages. But as we start to move down on some of the other time frames, like the daily chart, we can really notice a nice trend here developing with a number of pullbacks right into that buy zone with just some great setup candles, and continuing to move higher with fairly shallow pullbacks right around that 10-period moving average. And as we get down into the intermediate time frames like the 480 and the 240, looks like there's a nice setup candle there starting to develop right within the buy zone around that 10-period moving average on the 480 chart. And then you'll have some setups there on the 240 as well. So good looking trend flow setup, and we've got a level right there around almost a little below that 95 level. As kind of a backstop. So take a look at the at crude oil and see if you like some of those trend flow setups on the intermediate time frames. But looks like oil's beginning to move higher, and we'll have to see what happens here in the coming weeks. Usually, when you're trading these commodities, you want to make sure that you understand when the The economic news, the supply numbers are coming out, usually come out on Wednesdays. So make sure you got your economic calendar in view and paying attention when you're in a trade as to when those numbers are coming out, because those certainly will affect the price of these commodities. And last, we're looking at natural gas here. Talked about this a little bit last week. Natural gas, with a lot of the new technologies coming out to uncover natural gas, price has been declining here for quite some time. And so what I'm seeing here on the 480 chart actually is actually a nice bearish candle setting up right up there in the sell zone amongst that 10 and 20 period moving average. So if we can actually get a break of that low here this week, looks like we might be heading down again to test some of these other levels. Like potentially one of the levels I'd be looking for is that 2.2 level. So you'll see this set up not only on the 480 but on the 240, and so start to look at some of those intermediate time frames for those setup candles, potentially some flat levels setting up for a break to the downside. Most of the pros think that natural gas is going to settle in somewhere around the $4 range long term, but for right now, it seems like the market wants to roll over again. Just looking at some of these daily charts, we've got a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low in place. Same thing on the 480 chart and on a lot of these intermediate time frames. So we could potentially get back down to that, actually that little below that 2 level, which would set up potentially a double bottom with some divergence, and there might be a bounce off of that. So just be looking to trade that basically back down into that level, 2.2, somewhere around that $2 level. So take a look at that setup on the trend flow. It looks like there's a little bit of a flat level setting up right there as well. So as you move down to some of those intermediate time frames, you can start to look and start to see some of those trade setups that we're teaching in the advanced course on how to get in and how to trade some of these setups. But take a look at natural gas, see what you think about that one. So I'd like to thank you for watching the Open eCry market commentary for the week of August 20th, and we do look forward to speaking to you next week on the market update.